Dumb Husky and his white cat Shizun. Extra chapters. MENG's blind date. Tea-selling little sister, Part 1. After that, MENG continued to check out 7 or 8 other people. However, the other parties either look much uglier than he had imagined upon deactivating the Dobeo special sachet, or even before they undo the sachet spell, him and the other party were already arguing so much that they almost wanted to strangle each other to death. Thus, MENG gradually began to be suspicious of this cultivation tool of Villa Master Ma, and his suspicions only grew deeper and deeper. Finally, he reached and met the 11th cultivator. When she sweetly said, "I like Taxian Jun very much and would like to be his empress or even a consort. I heard that Taxian Jun likes children just like I do. I think that we are a match made in heaven. If he is willing, I can give birth to his child every year until he is satisfied." At this point, MENG gave up. Not only did he give up, but he also exploded in rage. "You! What kind of woman are you? Don't you know of the relationship between Mo Ran and Grandmaster Chu?" "I know." She looked pleased as she covered her face bashfully. "But this one is virtuous and kind and won't be jealous of Grandmaster Chu. In fact, this one is willing to have babies for Grandmaster Chu, too. He. MENG was so enraged that he shook the table as he yelled, "Well, aren't you pleased with yourself, you shameless hussy?" The woman stared at him, wide-eyed, and asked, "How could you yell at me like that?" "I'm not just going to yell at you. If you ever say again that you are lusting after Grandmaster Chu, I would even smack you." "You dare?" "Oh, I do. What's wrong with your brain? If you already like Taxian Jun, why the hell were you bothering to use the sorrow-relieving scroll and wasting other people's time? You could just accost him on Nanping Mountain." Hearing this, the woman became so indignant that she rolled up her sleeves and cast off her previous charming manner. "Fuck. You think I haven't tried?" she asked fiercely. "I'll have you know, I've waited 7 days and 7 nights trying to ambush him. You're fucking sick. You're the one who's sick. You're the one who doesn't understand the power of love." As she yelled, her eyes began to tear up. I'll have you know, that evening when we finally met, he came out from behind a fence and looked at me. When our eyes met, I heard a bang in my head, as if fireworks have exploded. Now, I've even planned which sect to send our child to study with in the future." The woman recounted the encounter passionately, as if she was trapped in the moment and couldn't free herself from those sweet memories, and then, I rushed over in excitement and told him. "Don't tell me, you directly told him that you liked him?" MENG asked incredulously. "That's what you think? Wow, what a terrible imagination. No wonder you have to resort to these blind dates." The woman rolled her eyes at MENG. In such situation, one had to be shocking and provocative. You need to use overpowering rhetoric. With one phrase, you need to capture his attention and interest. Understand? "So anyways, I told him." She paused, took a deep breath, and with practiced ease she loudly proclaimed 2 words, "I'm pregnant." MENG. What the hell does that have to do with Mo Ran? It has everything to do with him. It was his eyes, his gaze made me pregnant, she considerately explained to her uncomprehending audience. MENG sat frozen for a long time, shocked by her manic aura. He didn't know what to say until he finally managed to ask in horror, "Did Mo Ran actually listen to you?" "Of course." Using these words, I succeeded in attracting the emperor's attention. He was so kind and not at all cold like how I heard. He was even willing to take responsibility on his own volition. MENG got even more shocked. What? He did. What did he say? The girl covered her face shyly and said, "He asked me if I wanted an abortion." One tail for a kick in the stomach and not to tell Chu Wanning. MENG's mouth twitched until he finally couldn't help it anymore and burst out, "Ha ha 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 ha. What are you laughing at?" He was willing to kick me. It's fate. As long as I'm sincere, there's no reason why I can't be with Taxian Jun. Still laughing, Shuemeng stood up and stretched his muscles. All right, come here. I can give you a kick on behalf of Taxian Jun right now. Woman, ahh. Shuemeng finally could not tolerate this bleak and depressing blind dates anymore. With the pen name of Dobeo Manor destroyed my youth, he continuously submitted hundreds of bad product reviews for the sorrow-relieving scrolls on the ranking of cultivation tools. Each bad review came with nearly 1,000 words of personal accounts, denouncing this tool that Manor Master Ma had refined. However, what Shuemeng never expected was how his writing, which was full of sincere emotions and surging passions, would lead to many in the cultivation world to fall all over themselves to read and spread his writings. Of course, this was done out of mockery. There was even an unscrupulous businessman who copied his bad review and compiled them into a book. Since it was officially published and sold on August 18, the black market bookseller titled the book 818. The book's table of contents read as 818's My Delicious Daddy, 818's My Savage Cousin. Other people's misfortunes will always arouse the interest of everyday people, and thus for a short while, 818 became the most popular black market book on the streets. Many people even asked for the hero Dobeo Manor destroyed my youth to go on even more blind dates to bring more entertainment to everyone. It was fortunate then that the book was soon banned by Jiangxi. When Jiangxi came upon a copy and read the words "Delicious Daddy," his eyes shone with a sinister light as he exclaimed, "What sort of nonsense is this? Burn it all." Yes, sect leader. Thus, a group of Gai Yuye sect's disciples immediately rounded up all the 818s on the market, dug a pit in the outskirts of Yangzhou and set it all aflame. 818 burned, but the sorrow-relieving scroll kept selling out. Shuemeng got unbearably furious until finally he secretly sent a letter signed with his real name to Manor Master Ma, angrily cursing the sincere, adorable, kind, and innocent Manor Master Ma with more than 10,000 words. However, the core meaning of the letter could be summed up with, "You with the surname Ma. You dog thief. What kind of cultivation tool is this? Aren't you just perpetuating human sufferings? I'll tell you now, if I don't like your response to this letter, I will end any relationship between your Dobeo Manor and my Shisheng Peak. Don't even think of getting your hands on any of my Shizun's Night Wanderer design again. Arg." When the sincere, adorable, kind, and innocent Manor Master Ma received this letter, he was happily counting money. When he read the contents, he almost passed out in surprise. How could this be? Breaking off the two sects' relationship was trivial. That the one sending the letter was Shuemeng himself was trivial. What was not trivial was that there was a customer who was dissatisfied with his masterpiece. Oh goodness! Is that 818 not some fabrication that Gai Yuye made up to compete with him underhandedly? There really was someone in this world who hated his product this much. Manor Master Ma felt sad and hiccuped through his sobs. He even felt a bit depressed. He would never allow any customer in this world to not be satisfied with his lovingly crafted sorrow-relieving scroll. Never. So Manor Master Ma pulled out his secret weapon, the Xiao Ho. Xiao Ho is the collective name for a group of Dobeo Manor disciples. They are typically female disciples with soft voices, pretty faces and good temperaments. The cultivation mantra that Manor Master Ma had established and cultivated for them was to be able to grant a customer long life Xiao after one conversation and to be able to form a profound friendship Ho after one smile. In short, Xiao Ho. Considering how angry Shuemeng was, the honorable and serious Manor Master Ma attached grave importance to this matter and dare not neglect responding to him. So, he immediately sent the senior Xiao Ho disciple Buletin Zhenkai to go in person to Shisheng Peak and see sect leader Xue so she can serve him tea, pour him drinks and massage his back and legs. The main point was, every effort must be made to restore sect leader Shuemeng's favor and provide customer satisfaction. However, the senior Xiaoho disciple Buletingenki who had been appointed this task didn't have the same line of thinking as Manor Master Ma. She was a young, pampered, timid and pretty cultivator who liked to play coquettishly and has a great fear of Meng, who was once the second in ranking of the cultivation world's most arrogant young masters. She was terribly frightened of being hit by sect leader Shui. Lady Buletin spent some time commiserating her luck. Soon afterwards, she relayed the story to a cultivator she had recently met through the sorrow-relieving scroll. It's no surprise that Lady Buletin confessed her misery to this cultivator going by the nickname Wang Mei Zhike, who gave off an aura of extreme reliability. He was gentle and steady. He was witty but not frivolous. The way he teased was on point, a bit more would have been sleazy and a bit less would have been insipid. It was just right, like a perfectly brewed cup of tea. Note, Wang Mei Zhike, an idiom, thinking of plums quenches the thirst. Moreover, he was exceptionally considerate and eager to help. Once Wang Mei Zhike heard of Lady Buletin's plight, he contemplated for just a moment before replying to her message, "Worry not. Let me settle this matter on your behalf." Buletingenki was extremely shocked and moved as she replied, "Really?" Cultivator Wang Mei's tone on the jade slip was as gentle and as considerate as ever. "Of course, a gentleman keeps his words. Relax and leave sect leader Shui to me. I will handle this matter." That day, Meng was cleaning off the dust that accumulated at the Red Lotus Pavilion when suddenly, a disciple came over to report. Reporting to sect leader. Someone from Dobeo Manor is requesting an audience. Recently, whenever Meng heard the words Dobeo Manor, he would develop a headache. He cleaned off a file left behind by Chu Wanning and threw it into a bamboo canister before turning to the reporting disciple. He angrily said, "Tell him to get lost. It's a woman." "So what if it's a woman?" His strings of disastrous blind dates had confirmed Meng's beliefs in the cardinal truth that whether men or women, awful people were all the same. "You can tell her to get lost, too. I won't accept any more tools recommended by Dobeo Manor. Tell them just to give up already." As he said this, he began to wipe off Chu Wanning's jean stand. "And you can tell her to inform Ma Yun that even if I'm stuck doing business with only Zhang Yuchen in the future, I would still refuse to transact with his sect. Just look at the questionable products they came up with. What a nuisance." The pitiful disciple suffered the wrath of his sect leader before he finally got the chance to plaintively said, "But she said she was one of the Dobeo Manor's Xiaoho disciples." "Xiaoho disciple?" Meng frowned. "What the hell is that?" The disciple answered, "I heard she's here to apologize." He swallowed and then recited the message, "Whether to be rolled around or kneaded flat, here for your errands or your anger, whatever will satisfy you, only then she will leave." Meng thought, so she's here to be the practice dummy one would target during a martial arts practice? Despite his utter dissatisfaction, the woman came over to make amends, so Meng reluctantly went out to meet her. Before leaving though, he told the disciple who was guarding the Red Lotus Pavilion, "Hey, don't touch the jean stand I was cleaning. I'll go back to it once I return." After the disciple on guard duty assured him for the 100th time that he wouldn't dare to move even a speck of dust from the Red Lotus Pavilion, Meng was finally placated enough to put his cleaning rag aside and left. When he arrived at the Loyalty Hall, he saw an unfamiliar female cultivator at the center of hall. She was dressed in silver robes, with long pale brown hair that naturally curled at the end, which was held up by a jade hairpin. Her skin was whiter than snow. Even indoors, she seemed to emit a soft light. She was at that moment crouching down to play with Veggie Bun, the orange cat. The fat cat, who usually looked at people with disdain, seemed to have liked her very much, which was highly unusual. It did not only turn over its white belly for her to rub, but it also squinted its eyes and let out a satisfied purr. Hearing someone was approaching, the lady from Xiaoho turned her head. When she saw Meng, she immediately got up and exuding warmth and shyness as she smiled at him. "Ah, sect leader Shui. It's an honor to finally meet you. MENG, huh? Why did this person feel so familiar? MENG scrutinized her to make sure that she wasn't wearing the Dobeo illusion sachet. If it wasn't an illusion that caused him to feel that sensation, then it probably was just a coincidence. Her complexion was fair, her eyes and hair were both rather pale. Her facial features gave off a mysterious aura, breathtaking but cold. However, she has a pair of loving eyes brimming with emotion that looked everywhere with great interest. She seemed to possess an air of romantic charm that was nowhere coy at all. MENG was a very particular person. Since his birth, the only woman that he would call beautiful in his eyes was his mother, Madame Wang. But this Xiaoho. She might not be as good looking as himself in MENG's opinion, but he couldn't deny that she wasn't too bad as well. The two looked at each other for a while. When the Xiaoho woman was about to speak to introduce herself, MENG suddenly held up his hand and said, "Wait a minute." He then turned to the disciple who fetched him and said, "Come over here." As soon as the disciple approached, MENG lowered his voice and asked, "Are you sure this Xiaoho is actually here to offer apologies?" The disciple didn't understand, but he answered, "Yes." MENG said gravely, "Is there any chance that Ma Yun is deploying a beauty tactic to slyly persuade me to give up the fight on behalf of the unfortunate victims of the sorrow-relieving scroll?" The disciple thought to himself, "Aren't you the only unfortunate victim of the sorrow-relieving scroll? Everyone else was having a great time with it except for you. Besides, 818 was really funny." But on second thoughts, he valued his life. So, the disciple pumped his fist and cheered MENG on as he said, "Sect leader, justice may be late but it will always come. Manner Master Ma deploying the beauty tactic is nothing. Even if someone use all 36 straight gems against you, sect leader will remain the upright and forthright sect leader Shui. Believe in yourself, you will certainly prevail." MENG was greatly inspired and moved when he heard this. He patted the disciple on the shoulder and said, "Well said. True gold does not fear fire. True men are not afraid of female wiles. Even if she tried to grind me down, I'll never have a change of heart. I'll be indifferent and cold to her, would even embarrass her so she'll make a tactical retreat and leave Shisheng Peak as soon as possible." Afterwards, he turned around and said aggressively to the Xiaoho, "So, what are you called?" "Oh, me," the lady of Xiaoho smiled gently and said, "My name isn't worthy of your ears. It is enough for sect leader Shui to call me Xiaoho." "Right." MENG waved his hand vigilantly and impatiently as he said, "It's impossible for me to change my mind about the sorrow-relieving scroll. If that's your purpose for coming over, then better leave now so we don't waste each other's time." Xiaoho smiled indulgently and said, "Offering apologies is just one of the reasons I'm here. There are so many Xiaoho disciples like me at Dobeo Manor, but I have asked to come to Shisheng Peak of my own volition. It's not only because of the sorrow-relieving scroll but also because..." She stared at MENG with her pale eyes, and suddenly he felt that inexplicable sense of familiarity again. It made him feel as if he was a mouse being eyed at by a cat. Goosebumps raised along his spine and he had a sudden sense of danger, as if very shortly, he would become a toy for her amusements. He immediately went on guard, ready to drive her off from the mountain as soon as any excuse to do so arise. Then suddenly, the Xiaoho's face widened with a smile full of boundless charms. She sweetly continued, "Because sect leader Shui is the cultivation world's most remarkable, most righteous, most generous, most spicy." "What? Cough. Most striking cultivator." She seamlessly corrected herself without even blinking. Smiling still, she continued, "This one has admired you for a long time and has voluntarily come over with the intention of keeping you company." End chapter. Dumb Husky and his white cat Shizun. Extra chapters. MENG's blind date. Tea-selling little sister, Part 2. To be honest, MENG didn't feel that he was in any ways in need of a female companion. At the same time, he could admit that what the Xiaohou said felt true. He didn't feel disgusted by such an honest woman. It has been said that, it's hard to strike a smiling face, and besides, she had not done anything displeasing at all. Moreover, she was genuinely honest and ardent. Xuemeng didn't have the heart to chase her away, so he could only allow her to stay at Shisheng Peak for the meanwhile. He would allow her to personally represent Villa Master Ma in expressing his sincerest apologies to sect leader Xue, as she claimed. After a few days, Xiaohou proved to be quite tactful. Without Xuemeng's expressed permission, she would never wander around. Instead, she would simply and quietly help out around Shisheng Peak. There were actually a lot of things that needs to be done around Shisheng Peak. Although the sect progressed rapidly after the Great War, they still accepted errands like Granny Wang's cat climbed up the tree again and couldn't get down. Before, when he was younger, these tasks were usually handled by Shimei. Sometimes when Mo Ran was bored, he would also take them. But after he took the reign of running the sect, it was his hope that every disciple could go out into the countryside and understand the concept that good deeds, no matter how big or how small, were all equally significant. Therefore, he asked the 20 elders of Shisheng Peak to pick their disciples who would take turns in taking such random errands. It's Elder Tanlang's turn this month. Aside from Chu Wanning, Elder Tanlang has the fewest disciples. They were all picked though his own particular method, so all those disciples under him were also rather particular and odd. These disciples would absolutely refuse to do errands like going down the mountain to help Granny Wang's cat get down. However, they wouldn't dare refuse direct requests from the sect leader. So, what they would normally do was to look for some easy-to-bully junior disciples from Elder Suanji's group and bribe them or threaten them with a beating to do these trivial tasks for them. For these reasons, the gentle and amicable Elder Suanji would have no choice but to go Elder Tanlang multiple times to settle the score. But with Xiaohou, everything was different. With just a few words, she somehow managed to charm Elder Tanlang's disciples into going down the mountain to do these menial tasks and even get them to leave with great cheer. Besides resolving arguments, she helped the auntie at Menpo Hall make food, wiped down the stone lions of Nahi Bridge and catalogued the books in the library pavilion. She was willing to do any errand and did them well. From the elders in their high seats down to Menpo Hall's dog and Madame Wang's cat, all those who breathed had only one thing to say about her. "Meow," said the cat. "Bow wow," said the dog. "Wow," said the people. It was clear that Xiaohou has the wisdom and serenity befitting someone coming from a cohort of Deshija. By the third day, Xuemeng could not sit still any longer. He felt that this woman was quite capable, so he should be able to ask her for advice. However, he also felt that he had to save face and that he shouldn't go and ask advice from a young lady of another sect to discuss such matters. As he was deliberating his action, he heard from a nearby corridor the sound of some young disciples' whispered discussion. A disciple said, "Lady Xiaohou is so beautiful. Yeah, but I don't know how long she would stay in Shisheng Peak. If she could stay for 3 or 5 months, I would start to pursue her." Another disciple rolled his eyes and said, "The toad wants to eat swan meat. Can't you see that Lady Xiaohou secretly admires our sect leader?" Xuemeng was shocked. By then, they walked around the corner. Xuemeng quickly raised the sword manual in his hand to cover his face while straining to listen into their conversation. "Eh? Really? Are you stupid? Don't you notice that whenever she talks to other people, she can't go 3 sentences before she turns the subject to be about sect leader Xue? See how blindly she was praising him. She says that our sect leader is more handsome than Grand Master Mo, smarter than Manor Master Ma, richer than Zhang Yuchen and more kind-hearted than Grand Master Chu. Worst of all, she stated that his stature and height are both excellent. Tell me, was she wearing blinders or not?" Xuemeng fumed. Everything she said was undoubtedly true, you two were the blind ones. She was asking about everything about him, from his favorite food up to his recent moods. Yesterday, I even heard her asking sect leader about what he thinks of Mei Hangxiu. Eh? Why does she want to know what the sect leader think about Mei Hangxiu? Obviously it's because sect leader and Mei Xiang are childhood friends. If you want to get the measure of a man, you need to get the measure of the men around him. I think Lady Xiao is set on him, so you better give up. You have no chance of competing against the sect leader. They continued to murmur as they walked away. That left Meng, who kept on standing where he was as he slowly lowered the sword manual covering his face. Although he thought Xiao Ho wasn't as good looking as he was, she was still a remarkable lady. And now that she was already praising him to death, he should ask her to dinner, maybe ask her how she manages sect affairs. That wouldn't be shameful, right? It was certainly a good idea. With his mind made up, Meng asked around for Lady Xiao Ho's whereabouts. He heard that she was in the library pavilion. So, he tidied his robes, cleared his throat and walked in her direction. Meanwhile, at the library pavilion, Doubao Manor's Lady Xiao Ho, Buletin Shenkai's hero, the master of the Yurong technique, the one nicknamed Wang Mei Zhike, the one whose real identity was Kunlun Taxu Palace's De Shikshan, the cultivation world's #1 dandy, Mei Hangxiu, was just then dedicating his focus on an ancient scroll book with the titled, Archive of Ancient Barriers. This book was originally in Chu Wanning's Red Lotus Pavilion. After Chu Wanning's retirement to Nanping Mountains, Meng was asked to move all his books to the library pavilion so that the disciples could study them. Along with the Archive of Ancient Barriers, the collection included numerous books such as The Journey to Shu, Qin Scores of the Rufeng Sect in Linyi, and the likes. As a music cultivator, Mei Hangxiu's interest in barrier techniques shouldn't be that keen. It would be reasonable to assume that he would be more interested to read the Qin Scores of the Rufeng Sect in Linyi, but he wasn't. Instead, he was focused on this cryptic, complex book on barriers which he was reading with unusual interest. From time to time, he would rub his chin and chuckle to himself as if he was deeply engaged in the material. And how could he not be? Because in this volume of Archive of Ancient Barriers that Chu Wanning had left behind was a pile of erotic art. Mei Hangxiu was smart and naturally knew that these collections was not Chu Wanning's. With a little thought, he could even make an educated guess of how it got there. Presumably, these inked treasures must have been sneaked in by a naughty Mo Ran. The scene must have been brilliant and the way he had executed it made him grasp in admiration. He had to say that Mo Ran was quite an ingenious young man. Mei Hangxiu had spent so many years making his way through so many lovely flowers that normal beauty does not catch his eyes anymore, yet he was deeply moved by Master Mo Weiyu's early authentic works. What impressed him the most was how this man dared to put such lewd pictures in Chu Wanning's book and live to tell the tale. What a truly extraordinary man. Mei Hangxiu kept on reading and couldn't help but let out a breath of laughter. Mo Ran truly was quite interesting. The fact that Meng, who had been with him for so many years and yet hadn't been sullied by him in any ways, was even more interesting. Being interesting was one of the most important requirements for Mei Hangxiu to develop any regard to an individual. And ever since he met Meng, he hadn't found anyone more interesting to mess with than him. In Mei Hangxiu's eyes, Meng was too impulsive, too impatient, too simple, and easy to forget. He was like a pufferfish. If someone sitting on the shore would poke him, he would immediately puffed up in anger, but it wouldn't take too long for him to stupidly forget what he was angry about and would go right back to strutting his fins in the water. Mei Hangxiu couldn't help but be like a cat with a catnip. He would casually poke and swat at him, and the angrier Meng became, the more he'd purr. In the past, Meng has asked him about this when he couldn't take it anymore. Mei Hangxiu, is there any bad blood between us? Mei Hangxiu thought, you are the son of my benefactor, so of course, there was no bad blood. However, there was indeed an old debt that you seem to have forgotten. Indeed, Meng seemed to have forgotten that when they first met as children, he had done something so evil that Mei Hangxiu still fumed whenever he remembered it. He had mistaken Mei Hangxiu for a dirty girl and dressed him up as one. At that time, Mei Hangxiu was a chubby-cheeked child with stubby, round limbs. He had come with his Shizun and a group of people from Minjiao Tower to Shisheng Peak. It was winter and he wore a fluffy white fur cap and heavy robes. The cap was slightly too big and kept on sliding sideways, covering his pale golden hair and blue eyes so that Xuemeng didn't notice the little disciple with the foreign face. It was the first time that Mei Hangxiu had left Taxiu Palace to visit another sect. At that time, he was young and had newly arrived to these lands. When he spoke, his words came out with a broken accent. Since he didn't want to be laughed at, he simply didn't say anything. He would just quietly stand in a corner with his pale golden eyelashes drooping down, which was the complete opposite of his honeypot future self. So, how exactly did this thing between him and Xuemeng started? It was the fault of the heavy mist in Miaoyun Springs. There were many hot springs near Kunlun Taxiu Palace and the disciple were used to bathing in them, and Mei Hangxiu was the same as those disciples. That evening he wanted to ask his older brother to take a bath at the Miaoyun Springs. But even after waiting for a long while, Mei Hanxue still hadn't returned to their room, so he went to the baths by himself. After taking off his outer robe, leaving him in only a thin undergarments, Mei Hangxiu realized that he didn't know where to put the clothes he had taken off. So, he simply piled them on top of his golden hair and walked into the flower-strewn cobbled path. When he came to the springs, he heard a childish and wild energetic voice. "Mei, you should go under the sun more. You've already been at Shisheng Peak for so long, but you're still this tiny. Look at how big I am. Son, I'm worried how you'll be like when you grow up. What if you end up like Vuchame Town's Xiaobing seller Uncle Wo, who was even shorter than his wife?" Then, there was a soft, gentle voice that answered, "Shizun is naturally the best looking, how could I compare to you?" Mei Hangxiu wasn't very good with the local language yet at that time. He didn't understand that Shizun meant young master. If he did, he would have realized at that time that this was the son of his benefactor. Unfortunately, since he didn't know, he assumed that Xiaozhu was the child's name. Having just been complimented, Xuemeng felt quite happy and satisfied, so he encouraged Mei, "I like your honesty, but really, you need to get taller. Just follow my example. Every day I gets lots of sun, so you should do it, too. When I drink milk, you should drink with me. Don't give up." "But I'm afraid." "Huh? What are you afraid of? Believe in me who believes in you. If in the future you really do end up short like Uncle Wu, then I'll have you covered. When we see a bad guy, you can hide behind me. How's that?" Mei laughed at his teasing and said, "Then I'll have to thank Shizun in advance. Look at how you're talking. We're both disciples, stop being so polite." Mei Hangxiu listened in as he approached. When he was near enough, he could make out that there were two children of just about the same age as him in the small hot spring pool covered with flower petals. One was slim and breathtakingly lovely, with red lips and white teeth, skin the color of pear blossoms. The other's back was turned towards him so he couldn't see his face, but what Mei Hangxiu found utterly ridiculous is that how this boy, even when bathing, has bound his hair with one of the Shisheng Peak's signature shining silver guans. Did he forget to take it off, or did he kept wearing it on purpose? Are people in Shu all this strange? Before he could finish his thought, Mei, who was in the pool, noticed him. When he saw that it was a stranger, he immediately alerted Xuemeng, "Shizun, look behind you." "Look at what?" The child, whose back was turned to him, followed Mei's gaze and turned to look at him. This is the first meeting between Mei Hangxiu and Xuemeng, and this meeting was truly doomed by fate. The moment when Xuemeng turned around, this mist of Miaoyun Springs settled over them. Mei Hangxiu could clearly see Xuemeng's face, but Xuemeng didn't have the same opportunity. He only saw that the other person's skin was very fair, his eyes were very big, and his facial features were very deep. He thought he was a girl. As luck would have it, It was around this time when Chu Wanning had just been peeked at by female disciples while bathing in the Red Lotus Pavilion. This incident was fresh in Shuemeng's mind as he yelled, "Help! Someone come quick! It's happening again! Quick, someone catch this dirty peeper! Ah, friend, I am not dirty, just, Mei Hangxiu was not fluent with the local language yet, and when he was nervous, his speech became even more incomprehensible. At that time, he wanted to explain that he had gotten hot during sword practice and was covered in sweat and therefore was looking to cool down. But he couldn't remember how to say all that in the local words as he lowered his head and he stammered, looking. Shuemeng was scandalized. You admit it? You're sneaking into other people's baths to look at them. Mei Hangxiu lowered his head and kept trying, hot. Thought. Shuemeng rolled his tongue to repeat his word and sounded like he wanted to vomit. He grew even more shocked, which turns into fury. How dare you call me a thought? I know that I'm good looking, right Shimei? Shimei hurriedly tried to coax him with his soft voice, why yes. Actually, Shuemeng wasn't quite that uncomfortable showing this girl peeper the muscles that he hadn't actually developed yet. Look at my arms, my legs. I'm as buff as my father. Take a look at how beautiful the Shuemen are. Mei Hangxiu didn't understand as he was still trying to think seriously how to say that he was feeling hot and was covered in sweat and just wanted to take a bath, but unfortunately, his grasp of the local language was still that bad. Shuemeng stopped his flexing mid-motion and asked, you want to see my butt? Mei Hangxiu finally managed to string a few phrases, so he clapped his hands and said happily, but here for bath. Shuemeng stood dumbly for a long while, his face turned green, his mouth opened and closed but couldn't utter a single word. At long last, he threw a chunk of soap at Mei Hangxiu as he exploded like a volcano, guards! Why aren't you here yet? Get this dog thief! Yes. Mei Hangxiu was still confused when he was dragged down to the ground. He was feeling hot and just wanted to take a bath. How did that make him a dirty peeper? Thinking about it, the child next to Xiaozu was called Shimei. As he understood, Shimei meant a younger female disciple in the local language. Mei Hangxiu had a realization. At Kunlun, boys could not bathe with girls. Could it be that in Shu, boys couldn't take a bath with fellow boys? End chapter.